In this quick video, we're going to have a look at setting up a canvas to be principles based. So what does that mean? Well, here's our base standard canvas that you might have seen in other videos, or if you've started using WayFinder yourself, with the content just generally floating around. And as we've seen, you can just look at profiles, and we can cluster by certain hashtags if we do want to start to add a bit of structure to the canvas. But what does it look like with a principles-based approach that we're going to call it? So let's start with another canvas here, and we're going to model it on some principles from Radical Civics and Dark Matter Labs. And so if we look at what they're up to, they're looking at building 21st century civic infrastructures. And typically they've come up with some principles to guide the innovation and experimentation to try to bring these infrastructures to life. So they've got a set of principles. This is very common. The question though is actually, how do you action these? How can they guide you and inform you as you try to bring to life new civic infrastructure in this case? So what we've set up our canvas for is to model and visualize these principles in the same way they have on the website. So let's start to look at what that looks like. So we can have these principles already prominent. So compared to our base canvas where it was just our stories, reflections, profiles and other content, here the starting point is to be pre-populated with whatever principles you like, whether that's 2, 6, 8, 10, however many you like. And what you see is whilst we've added the icons to match what Radical Civics have come up with, they're actually still hashtags, which has important implication and actually makes it really simple to start to connect content to these principles in a visual way. But first of all, what you can do is populate each of these principles with more descriptive information of what it's about, such as in this case here. So it can still be informational in terms of accessing that on the canvas. But more importantly, now if we were to say bring in some content, we can start to see how the content relates to the principles. And as I said, they're actually really still hashtags. So if we cluster by the hashtags, let's zoom in a bit here, we can see that we've got a couple of stories and one that's connected to this contextual principle, and another one that's connected to 2, which is agency and eco. So even simply by looking at where these stories start to fall within these ring of principles, we can start to see patterns, get a sense of what they relate to. We might also want to start an experiment that is going to apply some of these principles. So if we, in Story Keeper here, if we say, let's say add an experiment to the canvas. Shall we call it an experiment, etc. And we're just going to include now the hashtags for the principles that we're going to use. So let's say our experiment might be all around self-owning. So we just use that hashtag in the description of our principles, publish that, and that's published. And so now if we refresh our canvas, bring our principles content and cluster by hashtag, we now see that we have an experiment here that's connected to self-owning. So we can quickly see who's experimenting and applying what principles. So I might come along later and also be interested in the self-owning principle, be able to see the experiment. Over time, we expect stories to be connected to here, which is going to give us an insight as to how that experiment's going, what are people learning. So it becomes a really, really rich and powerful way of joining theory and practice, if you like, or principle-based approaches and bringing them to life. So that is the basics of how you can create a principles-based canvas.